discussion with an expert. This is an expert that has intensive and really deep knowledge of market systems development, private sector engagement. She's worked in very many projects, and she's about to introduce herself to us. So please join me welcome our special guest. Hi, can you introduce yourself to us?
Hi, Habib and everyone. This is Masarat from Ethiopia. I'm a development professional with a master's degree in rural development, and I have like more than 10 years experience in the development sector. Worked in different organizations, and currently I'm working in Mercy Corps, Ethiopia, as a market system development advisor.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on the show. So, for this episode, what I thought we'll talk about is market systems development and how it intersects with private sector development. Because there appears to be a lot of confusion about what market system is and how it relates to private sector development or private sector engagement. Perhaps you can enlighten us, given your experience and your knowledge of market systems. How is it different or relate to private sector development?
So, thinking about market system development, it's one of the development approach. So, when we are implementing market system development approach, it have its own principle. It's intends to bring sustainable change. It's want to create impact for the last mile community, and it's requires you to be like doing the activity being behind the scene. You need to be like play a role, a facilitation role while implementing a program which follows market system development approach. So in doing that, the private sector engagement is one of the strategies that we mostly involve in the market system development approach. It's not the same with market system development approach or and private sector engagement, because there might be other things, other strategies that you will be employing. You might be working with the government sector to improve the market system. You might be working with the private sector, but the idea is you don't have to be directly involved in implementing the activities while you are implementing your project, but you need to be working in partnership with the other actors. So private sector actors are one of the key actors that have a key role in stimulating a market to function well and bring impact and to make it sustainable. So this is how market system development approach and private sector engagement comes together.
Thank you very much. That's very clear. So, some of the some of the things that people talk about in market systems, and you alluded to it just now, is that we can work with different actors of the market to develop the market system. Now, specifically with private sector, with the sort of organizations that you work with or you've worked with in the past, what what are the things that needs to be done for a market system development practitioners or a practitioner to do proper private sector engagement? And is it a separate skill set that's required, or is it, if you're market system development expert, you can automatically do private sector engagement?
So the first thing is for market system development programming, like you need to understand the market system that you are operating. You need to understand what change that your project is intended to bring on the ground. So based on that understanding, you need to identify what kind of activities or interventions has to take place. So, as I have been saying, there are different stakeholders on the ground which will be critical to bring that change. So, private sector can be one of the actor which you work with to bring that change. So, that's the very critical thing. In doing that, market assessment is one of the critical skills that one needs to have to understand what's going on the ground. So you need to know like what actors are there across the value chain of the market system that you are operating, what challenges are there, what incentives are there for the private sector to be involved with, what the community is requiring for that market system to benefit them more. These are the things that you need to consider. And you need to have like the analytical skill to understand this situation. This is the first thing. The other thing is like in doing this process, you need to communicate with different actors. So communication is the other set of skill that you require to have. Like you need to go to the government office, you need to go to the private traders, be it like at higher level or lower level. So you need to have this set of skill to communicate with different actors, to understand and to design your intervention. So before designing your intervention, you need to understand how the system looks like, and you need to communicate with the different actors at different levels. So these are the key things prior to starting your intervention while doing MSD programming.
Fantastic. So, I mean, one of the things that you said in that last submission is the act of communication, and I just wondered if there are specific things that defines the communication that you have with, say, a private sector actor, and if you can add on top of that the different types of private sector actors that we may engage in the market system development. And when I think about this, I'm thinking more of people that are lower down or that we're encouraging to become service providers, and then the large companies. Is there a difference in the language that we use with them? Is there a difference in the style of communication we have with them uh, to ensure that we have a buy-in of whatever our intervention is?
Yeah. So, like as you said, like at different level, we have these actors. Like when you go down to like the community level, who are like last mile service provider, for instance, if you go and talk to those guys, their education level, their awareness about like the business activities they are handling, it's different from those who are like those that we call like a lead firm. So we need to strategize like our communication strategy between these two types of partners or private sector actors. So whenever you go to the like to pitch with a private sector actor, you need to consider who you are going to approach. Like normally, like when we are like try to partner with different actors, like we announce core fall application, the theoretical way is like you announce, you wait, you arrange information session, you facilitate that, and that was like the formal steps you went through, but it's not like a straightforward like that. You need to understand where you are like doing that specific activity. So like if you are going to like a vendor which is operating in the business without like considering the different details, let's say recording their business and knowing their profit might not be like the big deal for those guys. So if you go there and ask them like whether like they are making this amount of money per week and the like, such discussion may not work. When you come to the high level ones, like if you talk about reaching to the last mile on the first day of your discussion, it may not work. So it differs how you approach these actors, like uh, who is you are contacting, the manager, the owner of the business, especially when you go to the lead firms. This is very important. The time issue is another critical thing that you need to consider while communicating these private sector actors. For us, like for NGO persons, like we might think like the time we set for the meeting might be smaller, but for a business guys, we need to consider that like every fraction of time is very critical. So we need to be like standing on their shoe and think like which way is better to discuss with them. So this is very important to consider while communicating with the private actors, and we have to know like their interest. It's obvious profit is their interest, but beyond that, what do they need? Like do they really need the partnership with us? Do they really have like the intention to benefit the community where they come from and the like? We need to know something what they have in addition to the profit they want to make. So based on that, you need to shape what kind of communication that you need to follow.
So, is this part of market system development training? And the reason I'm asking is that it sounds like these are things that you either have or you don't have as part of your academic training or professional development. But specifically for market systems development approach, all of these skill elements that you mentioned, is it part of the training, or is it something else that, or is there some place else that people can get the skills specifically on how to engage private sector?
So, like in market system development theory principles, you talk about like partnership. So, partnership with private sector is one of the key areas that you talk about while talking about MSD approach. So, this is what part of the MSD approach theory. But in all over program management theory, engaging stakeholders, engaging partners is very critical. So it may not start like while you are implementing a MSD approach, but it is like through the whole process. Like for me, through my career process, like I've been doing it, but it's not because I have been doing MSD only, but it's because like everything on the development area requires engagement of different actors. So engaging stakeholder is critical in overall project management process. But when you like train MSD, when you provide MSD training, it's obvious you talk about engaging private sector actor. So you talk about how you do the pitching, you talk about how you do the continuous coaching and mentoring and the follow up. So it's part of MSD approach, but as a whole, you can see it's a project management approach.
Fantastic. I mean, what was good about that submission is that you mentioned yourself, and that just takes me straight into uh, finding out how did you get into market system development, or perhaps what I ought to ask is how did you get into economic development, and of all of the experiences that you've had, what was very rewarding in your career so far, and what has been challenging for you as a professional?
So like when in my early careers, like I really enjoyed working with the community. So when I start working, I started with the government office. So I've been working with a government agency where it's a cooperative promotion agency. So it's like organizing cooperative societies, different types of be it agricultural, non-agricultural cooperative, and capacitating them, training them, and the like. So especially coming to the agricultural sector, it really get my interest. So I have worked for around 5 years with the government supporting these types of cooperatives. So like supporting them, the agricultural cooperative, it's all about like facilitating like the establishment to access improved inputs and facilitating to access like access to their products, facilitating access to the output market part. That was the things that I have been doing in my early career. So it really gets my interest, but I at that time I have no idea about this MSD approach. But it was really a MSD approach. And after that, when I joined the NGO world, the things that I have been doing was like more focused on like improving the system level things. So it's which is really interesting. I've been working in different projects which really works to bring sustainable change. So like the idea of like getting my real career interest was like it's not like intentional, but it's through the process that I have been doing. I learned that it's really my sector, like MSD is my sector. So now I'm on this line. I really liked it, but it's as you said, it have a lot of challenge. One of the biggest challenges change will not come like quickly. Like you do a lot of things, but a lot of barriers are there, especially for a country like ours where the private sector role is very much limited. It's challenging to implement such a system changing activity, but some little changes also gives you the motivation that okay, this is such a rewarding thing. I should continue with this career and the like.
Mm, nice. So, I mean, thank you very much for that. But if you were to advise a young person just graduating from university, given the path that you took and what you now know, how would you advise that young professional? Would you advise straight into the NGO world? Would you advise straight into private sector development in some sort of ways? Or would you advise them to go into private sector first and then come into development? What would your advice be?
For me, I don't feel like specifying this should be the path, but I feel like even like when I do my BSc study, like we went to the field to do practical things, so that those things will help you to know like where you like to go. Like
Mm,
we've been going to like the small shops, we've been going to the millers because I have studied cooperative business management with my BSc degree. We've been going to the different cooperative businesses. So I was looking at like what I really need in those processes. So I believe that will help you to shape where you
mm,
would like to go. So it can be like when you like complete your degree, you might go to the private sector, but like through that process you will learn like where you like to fall in the like at the end. So I suggest like to learn through the process is very important step, not like defining like I should go to the private sector. It might not be realistic at the beginning. So for me, from my experience, it's like the process I went through helped me to define like my real interests. Like I was saying, like I didn't see myself as I said in the beginning. Like I'm like a person who work to like improve a system or in the like or the agriculture sector even. But I end up to be like a person who's on agriculture sector to be a market system development advisor. So for me, it's a process like which showed me like the way I should define my career path.
Ah, well, I mean, fantastic. Thank you for that. You're quite right. It's a bit tricky to give people a particular path to take. You find out when you get in there. But I suppose the starting point is that you're interested in economic development. So, as a parting gift for the rest of us, because we want to be inspired by you, what for the professionals, people who are already in development, where would you say we need to be thinking in terms of how we do our job? What are the things that you feel that is necessary for professionals, economic development professionals, to be aware of as we do our work on a day-to-day basis? Where would you think which you our thoughts should be going?
So, like the things when I always think about development is one is I think about always innovation. Like we need to think about innovative solutions that could bring change. That's one thing. The other thing is I always think about is it going to be sustainable?
Mm,
The change that we bring should be there even after like we leave the sector or whenever we come back to that area. So these things we need to be very much concerned with. So whenever we design our activities, if we think of about like if this is innovative that could bring change, if it is this is going to be sustainable, I believe like it will give you satisfaction.
mm,
Like whenever like I went to a place which I have been working previously, if I see like the enterprises that I have been part of in support and see them functional as we have been supporting before, that was the greatest satisfaction for me. So this is the thing that we need to keep in mind whenever we do interventions in our projects.
yeah. Man, thank you very much. I know we've gone a lot longer than originally planned. So thank you very much for sparing the time. Thank you for sharing your amazing experience with us and your amazing advice on how we can begin to do things properly in economic development. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard some really seriously good advice. My hope is that you will continue to watch the channel and learn from our experts. So a big thank you to our current expert, And hopefully, we'll see you next time. Thank you.